I was sitting in the doctor's cat-and-mouse allowance back. My buzz rang. It was my abandoned daughter, Angela. Her articulation sounded strange, about Algid as she said, "Mom, we're activity on a cruise to Europe tomorrow. I already awash your beach house and your car. We bear the money. Bye." And she afraid up aloof like that. 45 years adopting her, sacrificing for her, and she abandoned me like garbage. But I took her abysmal animation and smiled because there was article my baby babe didn't know. My name is Antonia Brooks. I'm 71 years old. And until that moment, I knew my daughter. I had become a added 6 months ago. My husband, Robert, had anesthetized abroad from affection advance while we were bistro breakfast, just as we had done every morning for 45 years. That morning, he had served me coffee with chrism and toast. As always, he had kissed my forehead and said, "Good morning, my love." Those were his aftermost words. Back then, Angela had been more present in my life, or so I believed. She came to arrangement 3 times a week. She helped me with the funeral arrangements and accompanied me to the grocery store. She like appropriate I see a doctor for a custom checkup. "Mom, you need to booty bigger affliction of yourself now that you're alone," she'd say with that smile I apprehension was love. But now I understood was for convenience. The coffer abode had been our altar for years. Robert and I bought it when Angela was 15 with a lot of adamantine assignment and sacrifice. Every summer we'd go there, architecture memories, adulatory birthdays and Christmases. Angela would accompany her boyfriends and afterwards her husband Edward. I would chef for everyone, apple pie and do the laundry. It was our ancestors' tradition. I never apprehensioned she'd see it as aloof money. And the car, that old Ford auto truck Robert cared for like his own child. He'd ablution it every Sunday, change the oil religiously, and consistently esplanade it in the aforementioned atom beneath the adumbration of the tree. Angela knew what that barter meant to me. It was the aftermost affair I had left of him. His aroma still lingered on the seats. Aback she afraid up, I backward there on that afflictive blooming artificial chair, amidst by added ailing people. And for the aboriginal time in months, I didn't cry. Article aberrant happened axial me. A calm I hadn't acquainted since Robert's death. Because in that moment, I remembered article I had absolutely forgotten. 3 canicule afore he died, Robert had handed me a manila envelope. "Antonia, put this in the drawer of your dresser. If article happens to me, open it afterwards a while, but abandoned aback you feel ready." I had put it abroad afterwards abundant thought. Afterwards the funeral, with so much affliction and so abounding arrangements, I artlessly forgot. But there it was, waiting for me at home. The assistant alleged me to go into the office. The doctor advised me and said I was an acceptable bloom for my age, that I aloof bear to blow added and eat better. I nodded and smiled, but my mind was elsewhere. I was cerebration about that envelope, about the aloofness in Angela's voice, and how Edward was probably abaft all of it. He had never admired me. He consistently saw me as a nuisance. I labored the arrangement and walked slowly to the bus stop. I know best had a car, according to Angela. But as I waited, I couldn't advise but smile. There was article anapestic about all of this. My babe apprehension she had labored me with nothing. But what she didn't apperceive was that Robert, my baby Robert, had consistently been a man who planned ahead. The bus arrived and I sat by the window. I watched the Berghall go by. The houses, the stores, bodies hasty everywhere, all with their own tragedies, their own secrets. I had my own, too. And I was about to ascertain them. Aback I got home, I went beeline to my room. I opened the chiffonier drawer, and there was the manila envelope, absolutely breadth I had labored it. My calmly trembled hardly as I best it up. I could feel there were several abstracts inside. Robert had accounting my name on the advanced in his accurate handwriting. I sat on the bed we had aggregate for so abounding years, and took a deep breath. It was starting to get aphotic outside, and the abode was bushing with those accustomed colligiosity that no longer scared me. I opened the envelope slowly, as if unwrapping a altogether gift. What I found axial would change everything. What I begin in that envelope took my animation away. There were acknowledged documents, deeds, coffer certificates, and a handwritten letter from Robert. My eyes filled with tears as I apprehend his accustomed handwriting. My baby Antonia, if you are reading this, agency I am no best with you. Absolve me for not cogent you aggregate while I was alive, but I wanted to assure you from worries. Over the years, I invested our accumulation in backdrop and businesses. We don't just have the coffer house. We accept 6 added properties, including the accommodation architecture Breadth Angela and Edward live. We additionally accept shares in 3 companies that are annual added than you can imagine. You are rich, my love. You always were rich, but now you are on paper, too. My calmly trembled as I looked through the documents. There were accomplishments to houses in altered Berghall neighborhoods, a Berghall condo, a small motel on the coast, and absolutely the 20-story accommodation architecture Breadth my babe lived. Robert had been the silent client for the accomplished 10 years, but had put aggregate in the name of a aggregation I didn't apperceive about. And according to the papers, I was the sole heiress of that company. There were also bank statements for accounts I never knew existed with numbers that seemed unreal. Robert had been a bus disciplinarian for 40 years, but allegedly he had additionally been an actual acute investor. Every penny we saved, every seed we made, he had assorted in silence, and I never knew anything. In the letter, Robert explained that he had kept it all abstruse because he didn't appetite me to worry about money or for Angela to apperceive about our complete cyberbanking situation. You know, our daughter, Antonia, if she knew we had so abundant money, her attitude would change. I appetite her to adulation us for who we are, not what we have. What irony. Our babe had labored us cerebration, we had annihilation aback in absoluteness, we had everything. That night, I couldn't sleep. I absolved about the house, affecting the old appliance and the knickknacks Angela had always criticized for actuality outdated. I looked at the ancestors' photos on the wall, abnormally the one Breadth she was 5 years old, sitting on Robert's lap and laughing. Breadth did that candid little babe go. Aback did she become so cold, so calculating? The abutting day, aboriginal in the morning, the buzz rang. It was Angela again. Her voice articulate different, softer, but I had already abstrused to be alert of those accoutrement in tone. Mom, how are you? I wanted to acquaint you we already transferred the money from the abode and the car. We deposited your allotment into your account. It's not much, but it'll advise you alive for a few months while you attending for article smaller. My share? I asked, befitting my articulation calm. Yes, Mom. We acutely weren't activity to leave you with nothing. We gave you 30%. That's fair, right? We charge the money for our investment in Europe. Edward has an cool business befalling over there. 30% of my own things. How generous. I see. Honey. And aback do you leave? This afternoon. Our accoutrements are already packed. We'll be gone for at atomic 6 months. Maybe added if the business goes well. But don't worry, Mom. Aback we get back, we'll advise you acquisition a baby apartment. Article that fits your needs. Fits my needs. As if she knew what my needs were. Okay, Angela, accept a safe trip. Oh, Mom. I knew you'd understand. You've consistently been so compassionate. We adulation you so much. And she afraid up. I stood there with the buzz in my hand. And for the aboriginal time in months, I laughed. I laughed like I hadn't aback Robert died. The bearings were so absurd. It was comical. My babe had beggared me, kicked me out of my own house, talked to me with abundant condescension, and all to armamentarium a European chance that would apparently be a disaster. But what bothered me best wasn't the money. It was the affluence with which she had abandoned me. 45 years of my life dedicated to her, of sacrifice, of actual love, and she had erased me from her activity with a 2-minute buzz call. That was what absolutely hurt. I arrested my coffer annual online. Sure enough, they had deposited in bulk that apparently seemed acceptable to them, but to me was a mockery. They had sold the coffer abode for abundant beneath than it was worth, acceptable because they bear the banknote quickly, and they had sold Robert's barter for a pittance. That afternoon, from my window, I watched Angela and Edward bulk their accoutrements into a cab. He was accustomed to 2 huge suitcases. She had a actual big-ticket attractive attach bag. I watched them laugh, kiss, and accomplish plans. They looked like two teenagers aflame for an adventure. They never looked to join my window, never said goodbye. When the cab collection away, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea and Robert's abstracts advance out on the table. I had to accomplish some decisions. I could alarm a lawyer, accost my properties, and get a back aggregate they had taken. But something told me there was a bigger way to handle this, an added educational way. I alleged Mr. Peterson, the advocate who had handled Robert's affairs. He had been at the funeral, had accustomed me his condolences, and had told me to alarm if I anytime bear anything. Well, now I needed him. Mrs. Brooks, it's acceptable to apprehend from you. How are you? I'm accomplishing well, Mr. Peterson. I charge to see you urgently. I begin some abstracts from Robert that I don't absolutely understand. Of course, you can appear to my arrangement tomorrow morning. I'll be there. That night, for the aboriginal time in months, I slept soundly. I dreamed of Robert. He was sitting in his admired chair reading the newspaper, aloof like every morning. And aback he saw me, he smiled and said, "It's about time, my love. It's about time you stood up for yourself." I woke up with an aberrant feeling. It wasn't absolutely happiness, but it wasn't the anguish I had acquainted for so abounding months either. It was article-like determination. For the aboriginal time aback Robert's death, I had a bright purpose. I was activity to get aback what was mine, but not in the way Angela expected. The abutting morning, I got dressed with added affliction than usual. I put on my wine-black dress, the one Robert consistently said fabricated me attending elegant. I anchored my beard and put on a little makeup. And aback I looked in the mirror. I saw a woman I hadn't apparent in a continued time. I saw a able woman. Mr. Peterson's arrangement was downtown. It was an old but affected architecture with marble floors and ample windows. He greeted me with a balmy smile, but aback I showed him the documents, his announcement afflicted completely. "Mrs. Brooks, this is abundant added than I imagined." Robert was an actual smart man. "Look, according to these papers, you are the client of I know, Mr. Peterson. I've already advised them. What I charge to apperceive is what I can do legally." Mr. Peterson explained that everything was in order, that the abstracts were accustomed and that I was the applicable client of all those properties. He additionally accustomed article I had already suspected. The auction of the beach abode was actionable because Angela had no appropriate to advertise it. "We can get the house aback immediately, Mrs. Brooks, and we can additionally advance with acknowledged activity adjoin your babe for fraud." "No, Mr. Peterson. I don't appetite to advance with acknowledged action. I appetite to do this addition way. I appetite aggregate to abide a secret for now. Can you advise me?" He looked at me with curiosity, but he nodded. "Of course, you are my client. What do you need?" "I charge you to discreetly get the coffer abode back. Do what is all important to abate that counterfeit sale, and I charge you to help me accretion complete ascendancy of all my properties, abnormally the architecture breadth my babe lives." "I understand. It will be an action that takes a few weeks, but it's absolutely feasible." "Perfect. And Mr. Peterson, I charge no one to apperceive I am abaft all of this, at atomic for now." Aback I labored his office, I felt as if I had woken up from an actual continued dream. I absolved through the Berghall streets watching the people, the buildings, the activity that was activity on as normal. But for me, aggregate had changed. I had a plan. The afterward weeks were the strangest of my life. Officially, I was a poor added who had been abandoned by her daughter. But in secret, I was an affluent woman silently orchestrating the accretion of my assets. Mr. Peterson formed calmly, and every few canicule he would alarm me with updates on the advance of the acknowledged proceedings. I abstively to break in my house for the time being. It was abundance afterwards although Angela apparently accustomed me to move into a distinct room. Every morning I would death watch up, accept breakfast at the aforementioned table breadth Robert and I had aggregate so abounding years, and then go for a airing in the neighborhood. The neighbors would accost me with that mix of benevolence and a fare they aloof for recent widows. Aurora, my constant neighbor, came up to me one afternoon while I was watering the plants in the front. "Antonia, dear, is it accurate that Angela went to Europe and labored you all alone?" "Yes, Aurora, She went with Edward. They accept business plans over there. And how are you activity to live, sweetie? We all apperceive Robert didn't leave abundant money. If you only knew, I thought. Don't worry, Aurora. I'll be fine. Do you charge anything? I can accompany you some food, advise you with groceries. You're actual kind, but I'm fine, really. Aurora looked at me with that announcement I knew well. It was the aforementioned attending I had accustomed afterwards the funeral. Benevolence alloyed with a little relief that it wasn't her tragedy. Well, you apperceive breadth to acquisition me if you need anything. These conversations were consistently repeated. The butcher, the baker, the lady at the bend store. Anybody batten to me with that bendable accent they use with the unfortunate, and I would nod, smile, and acknowledge them for their concern. But inside, a allotment of me enjoyed this performance. It was like active a double life. Mr. Peterson alleged me one Wednesday morning. Mrs. Brooks, I have good news. I was able to abate the auction of the coffer house. The buyers didn't apperceive the auction was fraudulent, so they got their money back afterwards any problems. The abode is castigation again. Excellent, Mr. Peterson. And the building breadth Angela lives, that one is added complicated. Technically, you've consistently been the client through the company, but we charge to accomplish some authoritative changes so that you accept complete control. That should booty another 2 weeks. Perfect. Accumulate me informed. Afterwards blind up, I sat in the kitchen with my coffee and apprehension about Angela. She had been in Europe for 3 weeks, and I hadn't heard annihilation from her. Not a call, not a message, not a postcard. To her, I had accomplished to exist the moment she got the money she needed, but I knew that was activity to change soon. I absentively to arrangement the beach house. I took the bus to the coast, the aforementioned avenue Robert and I had taken hundreds of times. The abode was exactly as I remembered it, small, corrective chrism black with a balustrade overlooking the ocean. The new owners had put some potted plants on the steps, but added than that, aggregate was the same. I sat on the barrier beyond the artery and looked at it for an hour. I remembered summer afternoons aback Angela was little, active on the coffer and building coffer castles. Robert assay angle on the barbecue while I fabricated salads in the kitchen. Angela bringing friends, then boyfriends, a fresh Edward. All those blessed moments that she had bargained to a simple bartering transaction. An older gentleman came out of the abode and saw me sitting there. He approached me with curiosity. Are you okay, Yes, thank you. I'm aloof remembering. I knew the above owners. Yes, I knew them very well. What abashment about what happened. They told us the aged adult was actual ailing and bare to advertise fast. We thought it was a steal, but it turns out the auction wasn't legal. We had to accord the abode back. Did you apperceive them personally? No. We did aggregate through intermediaries, but they told us the babe was administration everything because the mother couldn't. What a sad situation. If you abandoned knew how sad it absolutely was, I thought. Well, I'm animated you didn't lose your money. Yes. Luckily, everything formed out well. Although, now we accept to attending for Addition House. We admired this one a lot. I labored there with abundant heart. It wasn't aloof the money that hurt. It was the affluence with which Angela had aria about me. She had made up a chance about my illness. She had acclimated my declared vulnerability to absolve her actions. To her, I wasn't a person with feelings, but an obstacle that had to be removed. That night, I alleged Mr. Peterson again. Mr. Peterson, I charge you to advise me with article else. I appetite to get Robert's barter back, too. That will be added difficult, Mrs. Brooks. The barter was in your name, but your babe had ability of attorney that accustomed her to advertise it. How is that possible? Apparently, you active that power of advocate a few months ago afterwards your husband's death. Don't you remember? There it was, the moment Angela had started planning all of this. I vaguely remembered signing some papers she had brought to me. Cogent me they were to facilitate the burial and bequest arrangements. I had been so confused by affliction that I active afterwards reading. How above board I had been. I understand, Mr. Peterson. Is there any way to get it back? We can try, but it will be added complicated. We would need to prove that you active that ability of advocate beneath bamboozlement or coercion. Let's do it. I appetite to get back everything they took from me. Over the abutting few weeks, I developed a aberrant routine. In the mornings, I was the poor widow anybody knew. I would go out to buy necessities, allocution to the neighbors, and accumulate up appearances. But in the afternoons, I became a businesswoman. I would abstraction Robert's documents, allocution to Mr. Peterson, and plan my abutting move. I abstruse things about accounts I never thought I would charge to know. I apparent that Robert had been abundant smarter than I thought. Every one of his investments had been anxiously calculated. The architecture breadth Angela lived, for example, wasn't just profitable from rent. It was in and breadth that was rapidly appreciating. I also discovered that Edward, Angela's husband, had a lot of debt. He had taken out loans application the accommodation they lived in as collateral. Not alive, he wasn't the complete owner. Aback the banks ample this out, he was activity to be in serious trouble. Mr. Peterson alleged me one Friday with important news. Mrs. Brooks, we've accomplished all the paperwork. You now accept complete ascendancy of all your properties. I additionally got Robert's truck back. The client angry out to be an associate of mine, and aback I explained the situation, he agreed to return it in barter for a baby compensation. Accomplished work, Mr. Peterson. Now, I need you to advise me with one added thing. I appetite you to accelerate a letter to my daughter. What affectionate of letter? An eviction notice. There was blackout on the added end of the line. Mrs. Brooks, are you abiding you appetite to do this? Absolutely sure. She absentatively I wasn't important in her life. Now she's going to acquisition out how important I absolutely am. I understand. Do you appetite me to accelerate it to Europe? No. I appetite you to accord it to her when she gets back. I accept her activity, its activity to be actual soon. I wasn't wrong. That aforementioned afternoon, Aurora came active to my abode with Alpha adjacency news. Antonia, did you know that Edward is in agitation with the bank? My brother-in-law who works there told me they're investigating some loans he took out application the accommodation they are live in as collateral, but it turns out the accommodation isn't his. Really? Yes. And it seems Angela didn't apperceive anything. They're added she's activity to accept to appear back from Europe to array out this mess. What a complicated situation. Yes. And the affliction allotment is apparently Edward aria to her about the business in Europe. There was no business. He aloof capital to escape the debts he had here. Perfect. Aggregate was alive out absolutely as I had expected. Angela had trusted Edward, had sacrificed her accord with me for him, and now she was advertent that he wasn't the man she apprehension he was. That night, I sat on the balustrade with a cup of tea and looked at the stars. Robert acclimated to say that the stars were the souls of bodies who had lived a full life watching over their families from the sky. If that was true, afresh he was up there, watching his plan disentangle perfectly. Thank you, my love, I said to the sky. Thank you for demography affliction of me alike afterwards your death. The abutting day, Mr. Peterson alleged me early. Mrs. Brooks, I accept some news. Your babe aloof accustomed in the country. She's at the airport alone. Alone? Yes. Apparently, Edward backward in Europe. There are rumors they had a very big fight. I see. Did you accelerate the letter? I'm activity to accelerate it today. She should accept it tomorrow. I afraid up the buzz and stood there in the kitchen, activity a mix of nervousness and anticipation. Afterwards so abounding weeks of bashful planning, the moment for the aboriginal complete move had assuredly arrived. Angela was about to ascertain that her mother was not the court victim she believed. Angela accustomed at her apartment on Tuesday night. I knew this because Aurora, who seemed to accept informants throughout the neighborhood, came to acquaint me the abutting day. Antonia, your babe came aback after most night. I saw her go in with one suitcase, but she looked terrible, pale, with aphotic circles beneath her eyes, as if she had been arrant the accomplished flight. Alone, completely alone. And article strange, Antonia, aback the aperture man asked her for the keys, she didn't accept them. She had to ask the administrator to let her in with the emergency copy. Interesting. Edward had the keys, which meant he had apparently absently not to come back. Or maybe Angela had a parent article about him and had fled. In any case, my babe was back, and actual anon she would accept my little acceptable gift. Mr. Peterson alleged me that aforementioned afternoon. Mrs. Brooks, the letter was delivered an hour ago. The attendant accustomed that your babe accustomed it in person. Perfect. How long did we accord her? 30 canicule to abandon the accommodation as per acknowledged standards. But Mrs. Brooks, are you abiding your appetite to do this? She is your babe afterwards all. Mr. Peterson, my babe kicked me out of my own abode with a 2-minute buzz call. She awash my things afterwards asking. She advised me like garbage. Now she's activity to apprentice that accomplishments accept consequences. I understand. I aloof capital to accomplish abiding you had advised all the implications. I accept advised them, Mr. Peterson. All of them. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake a perception Angela's face aback she apprehend the letter. The antecedent confusion, then the disbelief, afresh the panic. She would apparently anticipate it was a mistake that addition was aggravating to betray her. But aback she alleged to verify, she would ascertain that aggregate was completely legal. The abutting day, as if she had been cat and mouse for my call, the buzz rang at 8 o'clock in the morning. It was Angela, and her articulate desperate. Mom, I need to allocution to you urgently. Acceptable morning, honey. How was Europe? Mom, I don't accept time for that appropriate now. I accustomed a actual aberrant letter yesterday. It says I accept to abandon my apartment in 30 days. It charge be a mistake, right? Do you apperceive annihilation about this? And boot notice. How strange. From whom? From a aggregation I've never heard of. It's alleged wait, let me find the letter. Robert Investments Incorporated. Do you apperceive this company? Robert had acclamated his own name for the company. How poetic. No, honey. I've never heard that name. Are you abiding the letter is legitimate? That's what I appetite to acquisition out. Mom, I charge you to advise me. I don't apperceive what to do. Edward larboard me.